Cha, what's up, man? Just kidding. It's me. All right. Hey, congratulations. You have made it to the final week of the semester. And as promised, if you have been doing the work all along, you're almost completely done with your rough draft. All we got to do is add a conclusion, and that's what I'm going to tell you about in this video. Hey, up here on the screen, we have the final week calendar. As I said, we're going to do the conclusion and put your whole paper together today. We are going to post your completed rough draft onto a discussion board in Dropbox for Wednesday. Okay, that's what we're going to collect for Wednesday. You also have an assignment where you're going to read a student sample paper. So important that you get an overall feel for what students have done who've done well in this paper ahead of you. And I actually will post 3 or 4 different student examples. You'll just choose one. There'll be a little discussion board for that. Okay, so 3 things we're about today. Number 1, tell you about how to write a good summary conclusion for this paper. Number 2, to show you how to put all the pieces together. You almost have it all done. 3, to remind you that you're going to need to read a student sample paper and post a little discussion on the discussion board. So important, it'll give you an overall feel for how to do this paper. Okay, the summary or conclusion. We are writing to online readers. And people who read online, well, that's us. We don't necessarily read from the first sentence all the way through to the end. Oftentimes, we just find the part that's most important to us, read it, and then decide if we want to read more. So, your conclusion is really the most important part of the review because that's where you tell how many stars you're going to give this book, right? So oftentimes the reader will just go look at your conclusion and then decide if it's interesting and important enough to read the rest of it. So the conclusion has to include a little mini bit about from each of the sections, and I'm going to show you how to do that. The first part of your conclusion, you're just going to restate the author and the title and the reason why you bought the book. Do that in about a sentence. Then you're going to recap the book's major strengths, the what I liked section. Maybe give a few little examples. I'll show you how I'll do that in mine. Then you're going to recap the book's weaknesses. Again, maybe sliding a little taste of an example in there. Finally, just think to yourself, is there anything else you think the reader should know in the conclusion? Because they might only read your conclusion. The last sentence, so important. You want to make your last sentence memorable. And I'll show you how some students did that ahead of you. You want to keep it to about 200 words. You don't want to go too long here. Let me give you an example. This is for the made-up book, Eat Cheap, The Only Guide You Will Need for Good Eats for College Students by Nabeel Adeoye. Here would be a good conclusion to a review of this made-up book. I bought Eat Cheap, The Only Guide You Need for Good Eats for College Students by Nabeel Adeoye to help me, a broke college student, save money and eat better. There, that's part number 1. Just restating what's the book, who's the author, and why you bought it. Overall, I found it helpful, but not magical. One strength. The book offers over 300 recipes from breakfast to dinner to even dinner date ideas for, quote, that someone special. I tried several recipes, and my favorite was the homemade taco mix that was cheaper, tastier, healthier after cutting the salt in half than the store-bought versions. I also appreciated the many little tips, like how to keep cut fruit fresher by sprinkling it with lime juice. All right, look at this area that I have right here highlighted. All I did was recap the major strengths of the book, maybe threw in a detail. It's okay if you repeat a detail you used in the body of the paper here. Again, remember, the conclusion might be the only thing that your reader reads, so it's okay if you repeat a little detail here. Now I'm going to talk about the major weaknesses. But 2 major weaknesses. Some of her solutions involved equipment I don't think the average college student would have, like a kitchen scale or freezer Tupperware. Secondly, nearly all the recipes involved prep work, and she doesn't cover how to magically find the extra few hours a week this will take. Now, comes the final sentence or two where you give the overall rating, and you're going to do it in a way that's memorable. Overall, I think the book is worth it for the recipes, but expect to have to buy maybe $60 worth of equipment and to invest some time. Here comes the little zingy line at the end. You will eat cheaper, faster, but don't think it won't cost you. 4 out of 5 stars. So, see how the conclusion is just sort of like a mini review all in one, and it takes the major points from your review paper and puts them in here. That way your reader, who might just read this conclusion, might decide, that sounded pretty interesting. I'm going to go back and read the whole thing now. That's kind of how internet reading works. People jump around. I won't read these now on the video, but I have posted Jason's conclusion, which you can read, and also Margaret's conclusion, both from good papers that did well. Extra credit. Since your conclusion should be a mini summary of your overall review, why not post this on Amazon and send me a screen capture of the posting on email? So if you actually do post this little conclusion as a mini review of your book on Amazon, if you send me the screenshot of the posting, I'll give you up to 3 points of extra credit. A few warnings. You have to have an Amazon account. You might have to use someone else's if you don't have one. Second, it sometimes takes about a half a day for them to actually post it. So don't do this last minute expecting you're going to get extra credit. You can do this anytime up to whenever you turn in the final draft of the paper. Okay, so once you do about this 200-word summary or conclusion, you're now ready to put all the pieces together into your rough draft and put the rough draft in the Dropbox and discussion boards. First, use an MLA header, double space, 1-inch margins all throughout the paper. Second, copy and paste each section of the paper in this order. Start with the introduction we wrote about 2 weeks ago. Then slide in the overview. Then the what you like section. Then the what you didn't like section. And finally, this conclusion that you're writing today. Put those in that order, and you should have a paper that will look like this. Here's Brian's. He wrote a very fine review, and when it's all put together, he has a good 1,957 words, all the way from introduction, overview, to what he liked, what he didn't like, to the conclusion. This is one of the papers you can read for Wednesday if you want. Hey, check your word count. Remember, the paper must be between 1,900 to 2,100 words. If you go over or under, you won't be eligible for A or B, and you may not even get a passing grade, so very important. I don't count the MLA header or any captions for pictures in the word count, so don't worry about those. No need to use section headers like section 1, overview book, etc. Just paste them together. No need for section titles. Do use transitions, though. Use some transitional words. Don't forget, I hope you have responded to at least one reviewer in your paper. I hope you've added some extras like pictures, stuff like that. Those are nice. You likely will have too many words, so your job before Wednesday, after you paste this together, is to cut down on the words. Post your draft both to the Dropbox and to the discussion board by noon, Wednesday, May 6th. Let me inspire you with a story from a student from 13 years ago. 13 years ago, we wrote a paper about this tree, which was a spot of racial tension in Jena, Louisiana. And one Monday, a student of mine came in. She said, "Guess where I was this weekend?" I don't know. Jena, Louisiana. She and her boyfriend actually had driven down there for the weekend because they were just so interested and decided, what the heck? They walked around and tried to talk to people. That was back in the era of flip phones, and pretty hard to fake a picture on a flip phone. She'd come back with pictures. And I was just mind blown that she would be so interested in her topic that she would take an extra step like that And you better believe that made her paper really jump out and be more interesting. So my challenge to you is this. This is the last paper. I've told you everything that's required in the paper and walked with you through this rough draft. What could you add? What extra thing out of the box could you add that would make your paper special? Surprise me.